Welcome everybody to another episode of Grind My Gears. I got a wicked guest for you today. Somebody who is fucking awesome. Shea Pierre, owner of PEP, one of the most finest sports and training services you can find in GTA in Canada. He's a good friend, but before I get to him, this show is brought to you by AshanimdariMMA.com. Log on to AshanimdariMMA.com. Visit the pro shop. Get yourself some gear. Enter discount code Brown Privilege. Get yourself 10% off. We got some really good stuff coming out in the pipeline, designed by Rebecca Godfrey Artistry. So if you log on to her website, www.rebeccagodfreyartistry.com, and join her mailing list, you also get 10% off of all of her gear as well. Now that bullshit is all aside, Shea, what's up, my man? You can't get this guy off of the fight. He's always exercising, man.
Man, I'd be outside right now taking a walk, but since it's this is a late night grind episode, I had to make sure that I was safe inside so we can talk without any interruptions.
Absolutely. So, my man, how are you doing? How is everything going through this crazy 18, 19 months now, almost 2 years?
Man, I personally, it's been a phenomenal kind of transition for me. Personally, because I've been able to get away from all the chaos and the hecticness of my old daily schedule of training all day and kind of being all around the city, and I've been able to take a step back and kind of ground myself with my family, which I wasn't able to do as much. So I now get to see my boys grow, and it's a hectic in a different way. I got 3 kids, 3 under 3, so I spend all my day with my children, and I just kind of get my own little training in when I can.
You just had another one too, right? Fresh baby.
Yep, I got a 3-year-old, 18-month-old, and a 3-month-old.
Busy man.
Busy, hectic, chaotic.
We had Benson December, right before all this shit. So it was like you were saying, like there was a couple months there where I was able to actually like get to spend with him, but then the grind came back on during the pandemic. So I mean, I wish I got to get more time in there, but it is what it is, right? We got to pull the weight sometimes, right?
You got to pay the bills.
Yes, sir. So, my man, the one thing that people may or may not know is since I've known this guy, he's been one of the best athletes I've ever came across, on the field, off the field, and like I'm gonna dive right into like your goal and your dream. One of your dreams was to play in the CFL, was to play professional football. And you achieved that dream and you achieved that goal. And, how was that process? Like, was it everything that you kind of like thought it would be, going into professional sport and dreaming of it as a kid?
It was, and the process leading up to it was strenuous. It was hard. You have to separate yourself. The grind is real. There's days obviously you don't want to get up and this, and you got to work a little bit harder than others. You got to put in that 1% little extra day. But man, when I got there, it was a little bit more probably than I even expected. Just coming from, we came from Windsor. So when you hit to the pro level, you're playing with the guys that are NFL caliber, just came out of NCAA. So I had to work even harder once I got there to just maintain or, try to get to the extra level to even get on the field. I was fortunate enough to play in a few CFL games. Didn't go my way where I got to spend a long time. I was, kind of battling my way, onto the field on a practice roster spot. But it allowed me to, to continue to do what I love and, allowed me to save up, every penny that I had to, do what I'm doing now and to have a future in training.
Yeah. So like comparatively, because I remember what it was like at Windsor, like the training camp, right? Comparatively speaking, it's got to be on another level just being in a training camp with those kind of athletes, right?
Yeah, you got to evolve. You got to elevate your game to, especially coming from a CIS program and a small school like Windsor, where they just don't get the backing and the funding and the money to get as many coaches on board like we wanted to. But we had a phenomenal coaching staff when it came to the DBs. So we actually had CFL, NFL caliber coaches my first couple of years, so it allowed me to prepare at a very high level and have the mindset and attitude to go there with. But you just got to get out there, and if you're good, it's going to show. But you got to push a little bit harder just to even get recognized, because they don't really believe in your skills as a OUA player playing with those kind of guys.
That's what I was gonna ask. Like, is there a forget like what coaches see? Like, in your opinion, when you see guys coming out of the NCAA and going through American programs coming up, do you see a glaring difference in skill level coming out of America and Canada in terms of football? Because sometimes when the CFL comes together, you don't really get to notice the two different kind of football that Canadian and American, because it's all in one spot, right?
You know what? It's their IQ level and their speed and their sense of the game, and their reaction is a little bit faster paced for those guys. They've played against the top guys in the country and in America. They're born to play football over there. Yeah. Where over here the game's a little bit slower. We're just not as evolved, or we're just not up to speed when it comes to play recognition. But our speed and attributes and skills and reaction, explosiveness is the same, but we just haven't evolved in the same type of sense of the game as those guys over there.
So, like, size-wise, did you find that you were smaller than some of the NCAA?
No, size about the same. A lot of those guys are even a little bit smaller. Those guys, like, depending on what team you go to, they like bigger, taller guys, or they're like quick, fast, more agile guys, just depending on what kind of system they're going for. Yeah. But the speed and all that stuff is the same. It's just their IQ of the game is just a little bit better.
Because in America, you're pretty much playing football from when you're like 8 years old. Right, so you by the time you get to high school football, you understand. Like, I remember when we got into training camps and at Windsor, and they were starting to introduce like zone and man, and I was like, what in the when I was in high school football in Canada, it's like, hey, there's the quarterback, go get him, right?
Go get him.
There was no systems in place in like high school football here, at least, and I can safely say that it's still probably like that. But I know for a fact in America, you come out of high school, you better know what the difference between zone and man coverage is, or you ain't playing anywhere after that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, no. As for me, as a great athlete, in what I call like a shutdown corner in college, they say, Shea, you go over here and guard the best player in the field, and we'll play a zone or things around you, but we want you to shut that guy down. So I didn't have to learn as much in the college game, and so it was a rude awakening when I got to the CFL game. I had to really study that playbook, right? Cover 0, cover 1, all the way to zone, to all these different formats, and I had to figure out what everybody else was doing in the game. So it was a lot more challenging to figure that out.
What's the difference in, like, because when we were playing, you have a certain level of quarterback. Like at the CFL level, as a defensive player, what's the main difference you see out of that level of quarterback that's coming in that you're playing against? Like, is he a more? Go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, in the college level, those guys will stare their guys down.
Yeah.
So you can read and react so much easier. Whereas in the CFL, they keep their eyes straight ahead, right? They really don't try to telegraph where they're throwing it. So they might be looking at the right side, they turn back last second and turn to the left. So if you're a safety, they try to draw you off, obviously, to not let you get into the play. Whereas in the OUA CIS, they'll just stare the guy down. So you really have to watch a lot of film and watch tendencies, right? The details and nuances of where these quarterbacks like to go, who their favorite guys are, what the what the offensive formations are. Whereas in the college level, you don't really have to do as much because you're going to stare down their best guy and they're going to go right to him.
Yeah. Do you find that I didn't get the chance to play pro ball. That's why I'm asking. Do you find that for me, when I look at those fucking offensive linemen, there's no part of me that wants anything to do with engaging, because some of those guys coming out of the States, they're big motherfuckers. They are huge. And did you find when you had to like if they call the fucking safety blitz, that you were just like, fuck, you making me run through that shit? Like, they're massive. You know what I mean?
You know what? They open up those holes pretty well, just depending on A, B, C gap. Those will be open pretty good, depending, because the lineman or the DLineman will try to get them away so then you can go through it.
Yeah.
So it just all depends on the scheme and how they're running it.
But you gotta admit though, there's been some times where that fucking old lineman was pulling and you're like, shit.
Oh, when those old linemen pull, especially in OUA, when we was playing Western,
Yeah.
And our D-line's small. Those big old linemen, when they pull and you got two of them in front of you, all you do is you just try to chop their legs down and just kind of sit back and hope for the best.
Preserve your knees.
Preserve the knees because they're coming for you.
Yeah, man. So, like, so you had, how many seasons did you play? 2, 3, right?
After Argonauts, 2012, I didn't end up making the team. I came back to school. I got picked up by Edmonton. I ended up playing 3 seasons total.
So
Edmonton and Winnipeg.
When you know, what transition, like what triggered your transition from like the player mentality? Because you have to have like a certain mentality to want to play the game still. But what kind of like in your head was like the trigger moment where you were like, you know, maybe I'm going to transition to what you're doing right now, where you're coaching and entrepreneurship? Like, what was that moment?
It's always been something like my passion. It's always been something that I always want to do. I've always loved to coach, always loved to help others, guide others, just to be the greatest version of their selves. I know I had so much to offer and to give to people, not just from a coaching, but from a personality standpoint.
Yeah.
You know, just so it's. I guess the transition came from when my last season I was getting ready to go to Winnipeg, and I already had a kind of feeling that I, you know, was on the bubble. And I said to myself, you know what, I'm going to start my business now. It's 2015. I'm going to start my business now. And so I started it in my basement.
Yeah, I remember that. You had guys come down your basement, putting on the grind.
Had guys in my basement, you know, took all that, you know, PR money that I had, kind of, you know, slapped some weights down there. And, we got some people that come, and I was supposed to go back that year in June to Winnipeg. And then all of a sudden they called me. And they're releasing me. So it didn't go my way, but I had fortunate enough that I had built that business in the off season.
Yeah.
And then I just continued it. And it was kind of like, you know, one door closed, another one open, and I kind of just ran with it. And
was there a part of you that still wanted to play, or was it just like when they released you, you're like, okay, I'm accepting this?
You know what? I still wanted to play. And you know, over that summer, we got some offers to go to some practice roster teams. But you know, what I was building was I just seen the future and where it could go. And I knew if I just played my cards right and I kept grinding and pushing and hustling, I'd be able to make it big in that, because a lot of people, well, even right now, a lot of people are always looking for that extra edge. And I knew I could give it to them. And I knew the kind of training that we were doing was going to make a big impact.
Now, like, do you still get the itch to get back in there? Because you're still a young man.
Yeah, you know, I'm 32 years old, and like I said at the beginning of the podcast, I feel absolutely phenomenal. And what I know now, compared to when I was like 22, 23, entering the league, man, I'd be friggin' 10 times better than I was. But
it always goes that same way. It's like it's the same thing for MMA fighters. Like what I find is like I train with a lot of guys. And I find that the guys that are retired, like from fighting, I have more of a hard time with them in the training room. But the thing is age is a bitch, right? Yeah. So like, even though you have all this technique built up, like in martial arts, it's a little different from football. You have all the technique built up, and you're like 38, 39. The body, in terms of the explosiveness, is just not there, and the wear and tear, right? But the same thing, like if I knew all the shit I knew now when I was 23, like Jesus Christ.
Well, and the thing is, I'm peaking now. You usually peak between like your late 20s, early 30s. I'm 32. I'm as quick as fast and explosive as I was back then, but I'm leaner. I'm more shredded than I was. You know, my mindset's even better than it was. Yeah. So, and back then, like I was training all wrong. I was training like a bodybuilder. I was big, bulky, 190 pounds. You know, my joints were beat up, so I wasn't doing all the same things. And now I just feel 10 times better. Eating's right, sleeping's right, recovery's right. So all I can do is pass on that knowledge to the next guys.
What about like I know like you know all the setbacks I've incurred during my professional career, but have you had those incidents of any major injuries that kind of like made you?
No, you know what? I've been fortunate enough that the only kind of major injury I had was back in college. I did some long jump. I was never a long jump, but I just tried it one day in a meet, and I kind of tore the hamstring a little bit. But I haven't had any major injuries in my entire life. I've been healthy, knock on wood,
So
for everything.
that's a blessing, because like if anyone takes away anything from what Shea has done, he's been able to compete at a high level and keep his body in fucking tact. Don't take me as a fucking example, because I have destroyed myself through multiple surgeries. But fighting's a different animal.
It's a different animal. It's a different animal. I've been fortunate enough that like I've always done the little things. I'm not saying that you have, but I've always done the little things where after practice I would do an hour stretch. I get in the cold tub. I do the sauna. I get the acupuncture. I get the massage. I do so much. I ate a lot of the right foods over the years. Not all the best, but I started to eat a lot of the great foods. So like I started to do those things, which kind of saved my body. Like I never missed a practice in the CFL. I was really proud of that.
Yeah.
It's really hard to do. So, you know, I've been able to do all those right things that kind of kept my body in tip-top shape.
Well, I think too, one of the biggest differences, like I classify football as a combat sport, because it's large men fucking running into each other. Let's be honest about it. It's large men at high impacts. It's a combat sport basically. But one of I see the biggest differences in like say like boxing or MMA or wrestling is that there's so many components to it. So I find a lot of guys, including myself, a lot of my injuries were from overtraining, right? And
yes,
like people are like, well, why don't you train less? Well, if I have to learn jujitsu and Muay Thai and wrestling and still get my strength and conditioning and cardio, and boxing, all the components to like combat sport like MMA, you have to overtrain. I don't think even in the CFL or the NFL, there's no athlete that doesn't overtrain. It's just knowing as you age when to fucking stop or when to and that's where I'm kind of, as I get older now and I break myself more and more and more, I'm learning like there's certain days where I wake up and there's like the 3 first stairs. I take the 3 stairs up and I'm like, my knees are like, oh, no, Ashton, you take it easy today, you bitch.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, no, and sometimes you got to take a step back, and it's just knowing, hey, do I need a little extra recovery today? Do I need some extra fuel from the food? It just, you'll figure that out as you go.
Yeah. Now, your coaching style is so innovative. Like I'm straight up tell you, I steal some of your shit all the time, and I use it with my but
yeah.
So innovative. Like, where does that come from? I know you're constantly studying and upping your game, but like where these unique things and positions you put your athletes in and put your athletes through, where does that innovation come from?
You know, a lot of it comes from watching the game itself. We try to mimic a lot of actual movement patterns and biomechanics and traits and skills and attributes that you'll see right in the game. And we'll try to load the same movement patterns as that and try to get you into the same form. Yeah. And we can load it, unload it. But if you want to get faster, we always tell your athletes will come all the time, hey, I want to get more explosive and fast. Yeah. And I say, okay, well, we need to run. We need to run more. But what is the thing that you need to get faster at? Most of the time, it's acceleration.
Yeah.
Right? We want to get that first step quickness. We're going to load the same patterns, that horizontal movement pattern, with maybe some sled sprints, right? Maybe some split stance, single leg unilateral movement. We'll try to figure out exactly from a movement assessment analysis how we can make you better, and we'll individualize that. But a lot of the stuff just comes from watching and just understanding the body, and then how you can actually apply that to the sport.
Now, like, I know like every athlete that comes across you is different. Now, when you have like a sport, like, because you do a lot of football athletes, and there's different components to that in terms of position, right? How do you approach a DLineman and O-lineman in terms of speed? Because they're not going to have the same attributes as, say, a DB or a wide receiver has that comes to you. How do you those guys?
All of them are going to need some of the same skill sets. Obviously, one's going to be a lot bigger than the other, but they're all going to need great footwork, great hip mobility, the ability to get decelerate, accelerate, right? Quick hands. They're all going to need some of those same movements.
Yeah.
So we train them slightly similar, but then it just comes to when we do an initial assessment, what are they biomechanically deficient in?
Yes.
Right. And a lot of the stuff comes from, just the feet in general. right? We look at the feet. So we do a full assessment, and we can just make him do a squat pattern, and we can see, hey, the arches of the foot collapsing. Hey, are we going into valgus? We have some hip shift. Hey, are we getting some sway in the like? We'll find some things like that, and that's where we can individualize it. But a lot of stuff that we do, most of the guys are doing the same thing. They might just have different corrective programs, but we're all kind of doing it. Because when you go to college, you're all doing the basic stuff.
Yeah, that's what I was about to. That's what I was about to say.
Like a squat, a deadlift.
Yeah, you said earlier, like,
a hinge.
I trained the same way as you trained. Back in the day, it was like bodybuilder style, right? You're just trying to bench, trying to squat, trying to deadlift. And that was like when we were in our 20s and playing at school, that was like, yo, these are the things you got to do to become a better athlete. Whereas over the last 10 years, since we've been coaching and since we've been developing, that approach is not necessarily the best anymore. Like, yes, you do need to have some fucking muscle and meat on yourself. But, Aaron Donald didn't get to be Aaron Donald just from all that fucking bench pressing he does. He's got to have all those attributes that you were talking about, right?
Well, a lot of it, for him, genetics, right? His size, his speed, a lot of it's going to be genetics. He's a big guy, but he's also a lean guy. If you want to be very quick and fast and explosive, you need to have a lean, dense muscle mass.
Yes, for sure.
Right? So you don't want to be Aaron Donald's not going to be a guy that's holding 30%. He might have 12, 15%. He's got to have a little bit more a body fat on him because he's a bigger guy. But he needs to be lean and quick and fast. And at the same time, he probably does a lot of corrective work when it comes to the feet, the hips, and does a lot of those things. But at the end of the day, we all have these base programs, but we just got to find the little small intrinsic things that we can make better.
Now, do you find that a lot of the guys coming out of university programs are still in that like bodybuilding mentality? Where
yes. Because the thing is that they compare themselves to NFL players.
Yeah.
So just like I did when I was that age. So I'm only 5'10", naturally like 180 to 175 pounds, which that's where like I'm the quickest, I'm the fastest, I'm the most reactive. But then I'm looking at guys like Patrick Peterson back then. That's naturally he's 6'1", he's naturally 215 pounds. That's just how his frame is. But I'm trying to get to him because he's the number one draft pick in the corner. And I'm thinking I got to be like Patrick Peterson. So I'm trying to build all this muscle that doesn't want to stay in my body. It's like a racehorse. You start putting 2-3 pounds on a racehorse, they're going to go shoot him in the back because he gets slow. It's just that much pounds on him is going to make him slow. So all of a sudden I start putting 10, 15 pounds on me. I'm getting slower. I'm getting stiffer. I'm getting, I'm not as fast as I was. And so that's what happened to me. And a lot of these college guys go through that because their mindset is I just got to get bigger, stronger, faster. And the bigger doesn't always mean that. Make it bigger, stiffer, slower.
Well, you remember Vernon Davis? He came out of Maryland, I believe. And I was watching a video of him, and he had every lifting fucking record that school ever had. And then the first thing he said when he got to the pros, when he got to the NFL, was he was too slow. He was too slow because he was lifting. He had every powerlifting record. He was too dense, and he had to lose. I think he lost like 15 or 20 pounds before he even competed in his first NFL game, just because he realized from getting into minicamp that strategy was not going to work at that level. And I see the transition happening, but I still see, like, especially in football, guys are thinking they have to be bigger and stronger than everybody. Yeah. But
it's funny because a lot of guys that I play with in the CFL, like the best players, and even when I coached as a coach for the Toronto Argonauts, the best players, some of them, they never lifted.
Yeah.
And these are veteran guys, 10 years in the league. They never lift it and never really liked to lift in college. It's like their body was telling them, if I go start lifting all these heavy weights, it actually might be detrimental to my game overall. Actually might take years off of me. And you see some of the best players ever that played, Deion Sanders, Randy Moss, Jerry Rice. A lot of these guys didn't do conventional, modern weightlifting. They ran a lot of stadium stairs, hills.
Herschel Walker,
hills. The best thing that you can do is run, right? Yeah. You run for a living. You might as well get really great at running. And a great stimulus is hills, right? Cristiano Ronaldo runs hills up his driveway. Yeah. These guys know. They just instinctively know what to do. You don't have to go lift the heavy weights to do it.
Well, like like for MMA, I know a lot. Like surprisingly, a lot of guys do not lift weights. Like I particularly hate lifting heavy weights for the reason being that I can lift heavy weights. There's a time and place for that. Like in your off season, like after a fight, I have to cut all the weight. I got to put some back on. But I hate it because when I lift heavy, I'm too sore to perform the movements and practice the next day.
Yeah.
I'm too like it takes me way longer to just get loose. And even then my connective tissues are broken down so much. Like even getting my hip up to throw a basic kick is difficult that day. And I
Yeah.
think like as sport grows and as coaches like you continue to evolve the game, we're gonna see a whole nother level of athlete once they kind of shift away from that. Because like in the sport of like I don't know if you watch a lot of MMA, but
Yep.
watch some of the fucking Russians. They don't fucking lift weights. They don't lift weights. They're wrestling. They're competing and doing the things that they have to do every day to win the competition. We're not doing like massive bench presses and stuff. Sure, that has its place in like in time. Like say you just fought, you're recovering, right? But these guys that are competing at the highest level of all sport, they're not doing these ridiculous fucking lifts. I mean,
No, and you go do a bench press, you're in a fixed position. But when you're in the bottom position, you're never going to be just in this. Your hands are all at different places. You got different grips. You look at guys like Khabib, man. He's there friggin' wrestling bears. You know what I mean? So,
well, like I always give this comparison because I have some dumb people who always ask every time I see them, like, "Hey, how'd you bench it? How much you bench?" I'm like, "Oh, I don't fucking know. I don't know what my max bench is." They're like, what do you mean? I don't know. I'm like, all I know is when I squeeze you, you're gonna want to tap out because it's a different kind of strength that you develop from sport and doing the thing that you're that. I mean, places like F45, they all call it that functional training. I don't fucking like that term, but it's like the function of what you're doing. And I think that if we can transition away from dumbbell presses for football, like it has nothing to do with your route. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And
then also you put on this extra muscle mass. You need more energy to use it.
Like, so I think that if we could take anything away, that fighting shows that is the biggest negative ever, right? Because you look at some of the most thickly muscled guys, they don't make it through 15 minutes of fighting at the same pace. They may win the fight, but you see a glaring diminish in skill level and in fitness as the game and as the competition goes on and on and on.
After one round, they're toast, right? Look at a guy like Nick and Nate Diaz. They don't lift weights. They just go do triathlons and run. And they build endurance for the sport. They can take a punch and they'll just keep coming at you because all they do is MMA training and then they just supplement that with a little triathlon work and then they just smoke a little bit and they're ready to go.
I didn't take my CBD. I need to be awake. I need to be awake for this one. But like your emphasis on running, right? For like, so say you look at an athlete like me who's had tons of knee issues, right? So what I find is when I run too much, my knees are fucked the next day, right? I have a diminished knee joint. So when I cross a certain barrier of running, functionally it wears me down. How do you approach like athletes who have those problems? Because obviously in football and combat sport, knee problems are probably the biggest thing. Like look at the Baltimore Ravens over the last 5 weeks. What is it? 5 ACL tears in like 2 weeks. How do you approach that with diminished athletes where they have those injuries coming back?
Yeah, so there's many different ways. Obviously, we want to keep you off your feet a little bit when we need to get that little extra cardio. You can jump on a bike. You can get into more swimming. But first, we need to address why you're having those knee issues. You've had some injuries. I think you had the Achilles. I don't know if you have if you've had an ACL.
Yeah, I had the ACL, and then I had the Achilles last year. I don't everything. I've had everything.
So first is looking at movement patterns and you're just biomechanics. So we probably have to look at the foot level because we know that you can be decoded as an athlete through 3 ways: your foot, or sorry, your shoes that you wear are decoding your feet, right? You put that shoe on, right? That big, thick sole, that sensory deprivation chamber. So we got to look at your foot, and is that foot stable enough to take the shock and load of your body 3-4 times the weight that you put down in it as you walk, sprint, and you pivot, turn, punch, all those movements? Can it biomechanically hold the load and the structure within that arch and all those intrinsic muscles in the foot? Because if you're a lot of MMA athletes, they'll default and put a lot of the weight off the inside of their foot.
Yeah.
They like to plant and push and do a lot of the movements off the inside of their foot, which puts a lot of stress on the inside medial of the knee. So, but if you watch some of the great punchers, you'll see how they pivot. Like throwing and punching, if you can pivot off the outside, because we all know all the force and the punch and the rotation, the explosiveness comes from the foot and then the hip, right? And then that arm comes over as all one complete unit. But if you don't let that foot harmony with the hip and the arm, you're not going to get that turnover and speed and oomph out of the punch. So we got to know, hey, where is he distributing all this weight on his leg, and can we fix that issue? Is he on the kind of heels, or is he on the balls and the power side of his foot? So we'll look at a lot of that first. That's a huge, huge thing. We also know that a lot of that inside edge and pushing off of comes from reverse torque movement, meaning that you're an MMA athlete. Well, you're going to have a lot of kind of thrust back, but as a more like sprinting athlete, more multi-directional athlete, football, basketball, lacrosse, baseball, hockey, volleyball, you name it, all the movements is forward. You're in a forward locomotive state. So you don't want to do movements that are going to make you go backwards, like a hip thrust, like a clean. Those are all backwards movements. So if I'm working, I'm always going backwards, then I'm putting myself in a reverse torque. I want to make the torque go out, right? So I want to go that way. So my foot hits the ground and my heel pops and pivots away. So I'm pivoting off the strong side, not the inside. Also, sitting in this sedentary lifestyle.
Oh, it's the worst.
Can be very detrimental to you because, you know, as you're sitting right now, hip flexors are getting short. Hey, you're getting long and tight in the back. You know, you're sitting on those glutes all day. But you go to places like China, Korea, indigenous cultures, they sit on the ground, not in chairs.
They're barefoot all day.
They're barefoot all day. And their feet are huge, like just absolutely huge. 26 bones in the feet, 33 joints, hundreds of muscles. So you got to make sure that those are turned on and activated and primed and stimulated to be able to do a lot of those things. And MMA athletes are a lot of bare feet anyway when they train.
Yeah, we do a ton of barefoot stuff. And like because I do I teach a lot of like boxing, kickboxing and stuff. And people find it a surprise. Like they'll start punching the pads and I'll tell them stop. I'm like, punch from your feet. I'm like, what the fuck you talking about? And I say, take your big toe and the toe next to it and dig it into the fucking earth and turn it. And like it takes them. Well, it took me maybe like almost 10 years before I really understood the concept of like using my toes and using them on the playing surface, on the canvas, wherever the hell you are, whatever surface you play on, whether the field or whatever, and driving off of the toes. I think a lot of athletes miss those little teeny things called toes that are the first connection to the ground. Yeah, and I think that's exactly what you're explaining to me. And like for basketball players, there's a group of now they're wearing the thickest fucking shoes on the planet. Yeah, you find like obviously they have the most impact on their knees because of the sheer amount of running, the hardwood.
Yes.
Then you have that thick Nike fucking sole that they always put on that foot. Do you find that basketball players suffer from like terrible feet once they get the shoes off?
So there is a bit of a difference. So like you want to wear a minimalist shoe for your everyday, leisure, right? When you're just kind of walking, going to the grocery store, something like that. You don't want to wear a big, thick sole. You want to have a more minimalist shoe that kind of is kind of the same as your foot. So it's very, very small, has a wide toe box. I wear Vivo Barefoots, a little branding out there, but I wear those, and they've done amazing. But when it comes to sport, you're gonna want you don't want as much of a wide toe box, only because you don't want all this slide in your. You want to be able to grip, so they make it a little bit more narrow, and they have a little bit more support on the back end, because there is so much load and shock from you jumping so high, so much force coming down, that if it was minimal, it would put a lot of just pressure on the feet. Go out and run for like a 20K or even a 5K. If you wear minimalist shoes, your feet are really going to ache and burn the next day. So you do need a little bit of cushioning padding, and it allows the foot to kind of get a lot of traction when you do lateral change of directions. But once you take them off, you want to roll the feet out, and you just want to be able to just kind of allow the foot just to relax and open up, and not wearing socks. Just try to let it breathe.
Yeah, one of the things I've been doing for the last 3 or 4 years, and I feel the benefits, is when I'm sitting down watching TV, I put the lacrosse ball on the floor and I just roll my arch out. And as soon as I stand up, I feel almost like you're on a cloud, because those muscles are always active. You're just walking day to day, and they're taking that pressure. And for a sport like MMA or any sport that does barefoot, like gymnastics, I think they have pretty minimalist shoes. My arch gets fucking destroyed. I have flat feet. I didn't start with flat feet. When I was playing football and stuff like that, I had an arch, and then as I kept going in MMA, those mats flatten your arch out. And the only way, one of the things I recommend to people all the time is roll the fucking, you don't have to go ham on it, but just put the ball on it and relax that arch, because when you stand up, you feel like you're walking on a cloud. You know what I mean?
No, and add a little point to that. Every single morning when I wake up, I brush my teeth, I have my lacrosse ball, I even have a little jagged ball, I roll that on. But I also sit in Seiza every day. So if you know Seiza, everybody knows Seiza. You can look about it on Google. I sit in Seiza, but I sit in Seiza with my toes tucked. And what that does is it opens up the fascia and stretches the fascia, that long bottom of your foot. Yeah. And that just needs to lengthen. And you really want to be able to touch your bum to your heels and open that up. And most people can't even sit like that and really get your toes dug into the ground for more than 10, 15, 20 seconds. Yeah. And that's a position that opens up that fascia. And then if you can, I go as much as I can during the day, because I do a lot of gardening with my wife. Yeah. During the summertime, we have the nice rock pebbles back there, and I walk on those uneven surfaces, but I get a lot of stimulation from that. I'm just walking barefoot on that and barefoot on the grass. So that allows that kind of sensory output as well. But those couple of things are going to be huge and beneficial for people.
One of the things that my strength coach has is this little, it's like a pin board. And before you train, you go barefoot on it and you just stand on it. You don't do shit. You just stand on it and you just move your foot, and it fucking hurts. It hurts your foot. But the one thing, at first I was like, Coach, why are you making me do this dumb shit for? This hurts my foot. And then he's like, get off of it. And then when I got off it, my mental state, it literally wakes you up. There's so many nerve endings in your foot that people don't really understand that are there, that if you stimulate them, it literally will warm you up. You still have to warm up, but you get what I'm saying. There's so many nerve endings in that foot that it's a quite often neglected body part when it comes to athletic development.
Because that's the same thing I was talking about with the pebbles, right? Because it's working all these balance, stability, and full body control. So when you come off, you get a better sense of your overall surroundings. Yeah.
Now, I wanted to talk, one of the things I know you for is your business acumen and entrepreneurship. The energy that you bring to your business and the energy that you bring to your clients and stuff, how do you approach entrepreneurship? You have so many different streams and things that come into your company. Where does all that vision come from to build it something that you have built?
Yeah, you know what? It's always a hard question when people ask me this one. I'm always working on so many different things at so many different times. I would say I get a good night's sleep, but I'm always trying to think about the next thing I can do. And I think that's what great visionaries do. And I always try to stay ahead of the game. I read so many different things that don't involve fitness. I'm always trying to think about branding and marketing. And that's the biggest thing. If you want to build a business, you have to build your brand. You have to be able to market yourself very well. Yeah. I have friends with master's degrees in exercise science, all these amazing things. but they're just not people person, and they don't have that knack and that personality, and that charisma and that energy to take their business to that next level.
Yeah.
And you always got to you always got to have 2, 3, 4 different things going on, to make a business very successful. You can't, like, it's good to stay, on a straight line and really build one thing up, but eventually you got to start branching out and bringing in a little bit more different streams of income. So I started off in the basement, like I said, but once I started to really build up that business, I knew personally I couldn't put 12, 15-hour days in. It was going to burn me out by the time I hit this, 32 years old.
Yeah.
And I knew I have a family, and I like to spend more time with the family. And I had I was working at the college as a strength coach. I was working to the pros, and I was doing my, my business. And I said, you know what, online is the way to go. And I was fortunate enough to get online before COVID started. So, and it only amplified from there. It really helped. But you also have to know about, how do I get more team? Like, how do I get more people involved that I can trust to help build and grow it? But I always knew if I was going to train people, I was already using equipment.
Yeah. And
so I said, if I could just make this equipment better, I should just make it myself and get these athletes to wear it and brand it for me. And that could be another line of income. Or I'm already filming these athletes. I might as well film what we're doing and sell it as an online program.
Yeah.
Hey, I'm not the greatest in food nutrition, but I should bring in somebody that's really good and partner with them and sell that. Oh, I'm already wearing minimalist shoes. I should work with that partner. I'm good at branding and personality and talking, and I should partner with them. So I'm always trying to think about how can I get, one foot in the door to take my, my business to the next level.
It's like hiring to your weaknesses. So like when I was in Arizona doing a camp out there, I read George St. Pierre's book, right? And the one thing that they were asking was like, how did you become like such a successful businessman outside of MMA? And he said, because I didn't try to do everything myself. I found other people who were innovative and experts in certain things, and I brought them in and helped build that brand. It seems like it's the same mindset and mentality that you used to build yours.
And one of the biggest things I always tell people is like, I use this model called pour gasoline on the fire. So I watch what other people are doing in the industry that are doing it at such a high pace, doing it really, really good. Yeah. And I'll just mimic exactly what they're doing, and I'll just make it into my own and make it even better. Yeah. Like when I go to make a program, say I'm making a speed program. Well, I'll take a year, study what other people are doing, right? Buy all the programs and figure out what are they missing and how can I make that better?
Yeah.
Because I'm doing it as a user and a client, and this is what I would want. And then I do a lot of research and analysis of asking questions of what athletes will want, and then I'll bring it all together and I'll make it 10 times better, and we'll sell it. And when I sell it, I only know we get one opportunity. So if that client buys it, how can I get them to stick with me for life? Yeah. So I hire on a full videographer team, and right now I got my own videography staff, graphic artists, all that stuff. Yeah. And we just make it 10 times better visually than everybody else. We give you the breakdown, the biomechanics, the analysis, the why, the how. If you're an athlete, coach, parent, we want to make sure you understand the exact. This time I'm training you. And I don't really get that from a lot of other programs. They might just have their iPhone out, they do the video, and that's it. Yeah. So we have to make it like just next level, and that keeps that customer for life. We might have the same customer buy 10 programs.
Yeah, because they build that connection with you, even though sometimes you're physically not there. And it's like kind of like what you said. If it's not broke, don't fix it. Like fitness is fitness. Let's be honest.
Yeah.
Like I know a lot of these different clubs and things that open up, and these different franchises try to HIIT is a big fucking thing. Everybody wants to do HIIT training, right? But let's call it like it is. HIIT training is not 45 minutes or an hour long class. That's not HIIT training, right? It's just a package and a brand. But like fitness has always been the same thing. You have to do the work, and if it ain't broke, don't fix it. But it seems like your approach, which is the same approach I use, you take what's already given and you just tweak it and make it better and personable to you, to your brand, right? And I think that's where
I always tell people, like, squat's a squat, but how can we make the squat better? How can we tell you our squat is better than, blow Joe down the street squat, right? Yeah. So we'll talk about, when we were talking about speed in how to get faster, we were trying to draw in what's something that somebody's not talking about, right? Because everybody wants to get faster. So we might talk about the feet. And how can you get more explosive? Well, the first thing like I told you about, your foot's the first thing that contacts the ground. If that foot hits and the arch of the foot breaks, you're dissipating 40% right off the bat. So you're not. So if we can get that starting, that better, you're going to get faster, and you might get free upgrades up the chain. Your hip's going to get stronger. Your core is going to get stronger, right? All those little things.
So we might just talk about,
it's all connected. So we might talk about one thing, and that's how we draw you into what we want. So we're always trying to study up, how can we hit the user, even though it's the same exercise, same movement, we're just going to talk about it in a different way.
Yeah. And there's this, like you said, like a squat is a squat, right? But it's almost like how you package that and communicate it to the person, because like the way I teach a squat may not resonate with everybody. They may not understand it. They may not, the way I explain it biomechanically, process it in their brain. But it's like you said, how you communicate it, how you put it together. And obviously you have a personality that, like, every time I fucking see you, man, you're always like, bring this energy. Like I'll be up at like 5 a.m. and I'll pull up your video and I'll be like, shit. Now I gotta get going.
And you know what? And that's part of it, right?
Yeah.
Is the personality, the charisma, the energy. I'm the face of the company, so it's like I always got to be on it. I'm the person that is motivating you to be the greatest version of yourself. So that's who you're gonna see, and that's what we're gonna bring. You have to do that, right? So.
Do you find it exhausting? Do you find it exhausting? Like, do you get tired
of? No, because you know what? That's me every day already. Right?
Yeah.
But like, you look at guys when they get, and these are where I, watch some of the best Chael Sonnen, Conor McGregor. They understand that it's a bit of a game, and they always have to be turned on. They always have to draw the crowd and sell the fight. It's just constant. It's just the way they have to do it. Whereas there's some guys that aren't big names, even though they have the skill and the attributes, they just don't have the personality to sell the fight.
Well, like, it's funny you should say that, because I'm sure you saw Conor's last fight where he broke his leg, right? Mm-hmm. And, everyone's all critical of him because he's talking shit about Dustin's wife. But Dustin and his girl are solid. I've been following his career. That wasn't even bothering them. But with the one thing, like, hate him or love him, the guy broke his fucking foot, was lying on the bottom of the cage and promoting the next fight. Next fight. He broke, like, I don't think people understand. His shin bone was snapped in half, and he was talking shit, challenging the guy to come and fight him while he was on the ground, promoting, like, he's like looking at the commission. He's like, that was not a knockout. That was not a knockout. That was a TK. That was a doctor style. Like, he was already, his mindset was gone from, hey, this is over. Whatever happened just happened. But let me keep going. Let me promote. That's the kind of energy that I think people, like, they don't understand it because maybe they don't have it. But, like, that's the mentality of a competitor. But not only a competitor, he just sold his whiskey business for $600 million. He's a fucking smart guy too.
He's a businessman. He understands the game. The game is not just fighting. The game is up here.
Yeah, and he's an innovator. And, like, hate him or love him, people hate him because he talks and he says all this shit. And I love him because he's transcended the game where and I wish all athletes take this into account. You don't have to rely on the income that you make from playing sport to be your permanent income for the rest of your life. If you look at a guy like Conor McGregor, look at the average income of look at the average income of an up and coming fighter like myself or whatever. It's horse shit. It's nothing. You can't make a living off of that. You can't feed your family off of that. But what he's done is he's used his ability to be an athlete. And let's be honest, in terms of fighting, he's not the greatest fighter on the planet. Not the greatest fighter. He's
very one-dimensional.
Fantastic fighter, but he can be beaten, right? Yeah. But he's used that gift that he has of talking, of entrepreneurship, of business, and packaging it into this wonderful,
amazing
brand. Like, he has his Conor McGregor Fast program. I guarantee you he doesn't do shit with that. But
it's garbage. I've seen it. It's garbage.
It's garbage. I guarantee you, but people fucking buy it because got his name on it. And I
Got his
have
name on
no
it.
hate towards that. And anyone that does hate that, fuck you. It's because you're jealous, right?
Yeah.
That's how it's done. And like, that's one of the things I admire about you. And that's how I've modeled myself. And I'm branching off into all these crazy different things. Like my wife sometimes is like, you gotta slow down. You gotta finish one project. I'm like, no, I'm gonna do all of them at the same time. She's like,
Yeah.
Ashley, you don't have. I'm like, I can do it. I'm fucking Superman.
Because as you're doing one project and you're doing another one, it sparks ideas for the one that you're doing over here.
Exactly.
And that's where I've always found, like, I'll be in the middle of one, I'll be working on this one, like, oh shit, I can put in more into this one that I just found out.
And everyone was like, yo, why'd you start a podcast? And I'm like, well, I got tired of creating content. I was like sitting there every like Friday night trying to come up with ideas and shit. And I'm like, you know what? I'm actually really good at talking shit on the internet. Why don't I just talk shit on the internet?
Yeah.
Hey, newsflash, guys. That's a way to, that's how you do it,
That's
right?
a way to make money.
That's a way to make money. So I'm like, what? Like, you know, I use Joe Rogan because I listen to a lot of his content, but like, he basically gave everybody the blueprint to, you know, getting online. He's like, get a microphone, get your phone, and record shit. That's it. And just put yourself out there. And, you know, the internet is so big, people will find you. They'll gravitate towards you. And I mean, like, you know, like you said, where COVID hit, you were fortunate to be online already and have a great big online presence already. What do you recommend to people who, you know, who have been hit hard by this, like in the fitness industry? They're kind of grinding, getting their feet wet online now. Like, how do they approach it? Because I know a lot of people have been reaching out to me. I don't know about you, but like they're lost. You know what I mean? With all the shutdowns.
It's hard because it's very saturated. It's very hard to get in now, and the algorithms have all changed. You know, YouTube 15 years ago, now it's possible to get the YouTube channels up, and that's how Instagram is. It's so difficult. Yeah. All you can do is literally you have to be very patient, and you have to do. Here, hold on a second.
Yeah, no worries.
You have to be very patient, and you have to be very consistent, because people will get down on themselves if they don't see instant results within 2, 3, 4 weeks. Yeah. It's an everyday grind. You have to really learn the nuances of Instagram, from the hashtagging, when to post, what kind of content to post, things that are going to go viral, things that are going to get more people to comment on to you. Are you commenting within a certain time frame within that first hour? Are you going on and commenting on 200 to 500 people's posts a day, so then you can be seen, so they can come back to you to start getting your stuff up there? Are you working with different businesses, maybe for free to promote their stuff, because they're going to then promote you? It's just, it's a give and take. How much can you do?
Yeah, because
how much can you commit?
Well, it's like you say, you can't do it all yourself. I think a lot of people get into business and they think like, well, it's going to be the straight. It's like any other sport. You think it's a straight linear path. You start a business, you put a product out there, people buy it, and you become successful. Very few times does that happen. I mean, like a handful of times for a certain amount of people. For most of the time, it takes, like you said, a constant grind and a constant amount of failure. Like when I look back in my athletic career, like everybody who follows me knows, like I'll compete. It's going like this, and then injuries. Then I get better, compete, injuries. Business goes. There's always. It's almost like a stock market chart, and the more that you can accept that and be patient, like you said, be patient, right? If you keep grinding, the stock it will go up. It's like an Apple stock. It will go up. But if when it takes that dip, if you're like, oh, fuck, man, I'm tired of this shit, I don't know what to do. Well, you're going to fail 100% of the time, right?
Yeah. And you just got to figure out how to keep separating yourself from everybody else. Yeah. It's like training. If I want to be the best, I just got to put in more hours than everybody else. It's just a numbers game, right? If I have 10,000 hours of training, you only got 100, of course I'm going to be better than you. Yeah. I just put in more time. So it's like, if you want to succeed, you're just going to have to grind and put in a lot more time than everybody else. You can't just put in an hour a day and expect that shit's going to happen for you. It could, you get very lucky if that happens, but you just have to put in a lot more time. That's what I tell a lot of my athletes. How do you separate yourself? Kobe Bryant did it. 4:00 in the morning, he'd go work out. 10 o'clock late, 3 o'clock, 6. He just put in more time. Yeah. And by the time he was, in his mid-20s, nobody could catch up to him. He just had accumulated way more time and invested way more into it. And so the interest was way better.
Do you find like a lot of people in the fitness industry that you see are kind of like that, where they're not willing to put in those grind hours? They try
to cut corners. Everybody's always trying to look for the secret method, just like anybody that probably comes to train. Yeah. Right? They're trying to do it. They're trying to lose weight in 6 weeks. 4 weeks, and it just doesn't happen, right? And they're blaming you. They're like, oh, I was supposed to lose 10 pounds in this next 6 weeks. You didn't do it for me. I'm like, well, it took you freaking 5-10 years to put on the 20, 30 pounds. You think I'm going to be able to take it off in 2-3 weeks? It doesn't happen. It's you have to invest in yourself, and there's no secret. It's just damn hard work. If you want to lose weight, you can't eat as many calories. You got to go train a little bit more, and you got to be dedicated on doing that. There's no quick fix. Like, I can get you, anywhere you got to be, but you got to be able to, do it exactly how I tell you.
I always use this reference. I don't know if you've seen that movie Friends with Benefits with Justin Timberlake, but Woody Harrelson plays a gay guy in that movie, right? And so he's like, he's the sportscaster, the gay guy. He's like, the rules are simple. You want to lose weight, stop eating, fatty. And I always remember that line in that movie when I'm at like 11 o'clock and I'm like, fuck, I want a pizza. I'm like, no, bitch, that constant like need for mouth pleasure that people have, that 3 or 4 seconds of weakness, that could lead to your demise. Not necessarily in athletics. I'm not just talking about athletics all the time. I'm talking about just generic lifestyle. The willpower to just say, oh, I'd rather eat this than be healthy. You know what I mean? I find it's in our culture too much. Just maybe it's because food is so readily available to everybody.
It's so readily available. It's so damn good, and they design food now to be so addicting. Yes. And it's become a habit for you, and so it's really hard to break those habits. You know what I mean? Yeah. So it's just ingrained in us to eat after 8, 9, 10 o'clock and have those extra snacks. It's hard to stop them. And it takes a ton of willpower, which a lot of people don't have. If they did, they'd be out doing some other shit with it.
Yeah, like when I get a new person, when a new client comes to me and I start working with somebody, they're like, oh, I want this goal. I want to lose this much weight. I want to lose all this. And I'm like, okay, great. What I do with you is probably 10% of the work. Yeah. The 90% is going to get those goals are the things that you're going to do when we're not around. When I'm not around, when the coaching is done, like I'm always going to coach you, but it's what you eat, how you sleep, how you live your life, the choices you make. Am I going to go out with my buddies on a Tuesday night and have a few drinks? Well, if you got to wake up on Wednesday morning, is that a smart decision to do? Right? All those small little things, the 90%. I always say that I only do 10% of the work when I'm talking to somebody. The training is one, like, it all looks extreme, but let's be honest, it's an hour of your day maybe, right? You have 23 other hours. What are you doing with it? Do you find it's the same?
We've been talking for an hour and I just got 3 miles in. You can find that time to do it.
Do you find that that's a number one excuse people give you? They don't have the time?
Yeah, a lot of you know what? That's one of them. And it's just, people just don't know what to do. They honestly just don't. Yeah. They've been accustomed, like you said, to eating and sleeping a certain way and just living a certain lifestyle. They've just been so accustomed to it. It's hard to break it. So a lot of it's not just physical. It's mental. It's emotional. Yes. And so you have to break down those barriers and those walls.
Yeah, and the mental part of sport. Now, do you focus on that a lot with your athletes and people that come to you for work?
The mental?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's one of the biggest one, and everybody's different, right? Yeah. From the youth athlete, the high school, the college, the professional, they all got their own inner demons that they're fighting, and the things around them, and in society, and what people around them want from them, and their haters and all that stuff. So it's really kind of getting to the or if it is not getting to the core of it the first day, you start to get to know them, what makes them tick. And I slowly get to kind of unravel all those things just from simple things like, the things that I can talk to them about, or the tips and tricks and strategies that we do in the workout room. But at the end of the day, it's all here. And that they can be the most explosive, fastest, dynamic athlete. But if they truly don't believe it when they hit the field, then that's going to be their demise. Because it's, I always say, it's, those who say they can and those who say they can't are both usually right. Yes. So if they go on the field already believing that they're going to lose the game no matter what. Yes. If they go in there and they believe, there's those games, and you probably know this, if we go to York, right, they're not a great team, we know we're going to beat them. All of a sudden next week we got Western, we're like, oh shit, those guys are better than us. Yeah. We've already lost the game before we even hit the first practice for that week.
100%. Right? 100%. And I mean, I get this question all the time, but people always ask, fighting is crazy. What does your mind go through when you're about to fight? And they're surprised by the answer, because I always say I'm scared as fuck. And what do you mean you're scared? I'm like, because a competition, when you compete at high levels, no matter what it is, whether it be football, soccer, there's so many uncertainties that can happen in those minutes that are happening, and your whole dreams can be shattered. I'm scared. I tell people all the time, when the music goes on and I'm walking out, I'm fucking terrified. But no part of me has ever thought I'm going to lose when I'm walking out. I'm scared. I'm scared that there's embarrassment and failure and all those things that come along with everything, not just sport. But I always keep in my head that I will win. And that attitude comes from preparation. If you've prepared for whatever it is, a meeting, at work, a big presentation, if you put every ounce of preparation that you physically can, it may not be more than the other guy, but if I put in every ounce that I can and know that was my maximal effort getting ready for this specific thing, whether it be that meeting or a professional competition, when I get in there, I have nothing to worry about, right?
No, absolutely. And it's funny, you talked about the George St. Pierre book, and I read that same one. I think it was called Rush. And he talks about the butterflies in his stomach every single time he came out, and that nervousness and anxiety and scared. But those are things that kept him really sharp, and fine-tuned and focused at the task at hand. And just like you said, most people that fail is because they didn't prepare. They didn't put in the hours and hours and hours to run. I remember seeing you say, Bull, he said, I spent years practicing for something that takes less than 10 seconds.
10 seconds, yeah.
Right. So you have to put in all this preparation. And most of these people fail, and they go out there, and not only are they scared, they know they're going to fail because they didn't prepare. And so that's why. And then when you do an individual sport, it's even worse because there's nobody else to lean on.
Well, there's been, I would be lying if I didn't say, I've been in a fight. And I would say my last fight, I barely got hit. He just hit my nose. And then my whole nose started gushing blood. And blood in a fight is never a good thing. It's always a bad indicator sign. So I was still winning the fight. But when you're looking on from the outside, you're like, oh, fuck, he's bleeding, right? And I would be lying if I didn't say, while I'm in the moment, I didn't have, a second of doubt where I'm like, shit. You know what I mean? What the fuck? But that always going to happen when you're doing stuff in life and competing, even in business, right? I'm sure there's been times where, business gets slower, especially in fitness. You have those turnover periods, you know what I mean? And you're like, shit, what am I going to do? Well, you have two options. It's either you fucking lie down or you keep fucking fighting, right? And I think sometimes, especially in fitness industry and in life, people say, I'm just going to lie down. Well, you're already in that. You're already in there. You're already committed to it. Why would you lie down? You gotta just keep going. There's not, even if you were to fail, you can look back in your life in 50 years and be like, yo, I didn't lie down for anybody. I kept going. That person was just a better person that day. You know what I mean? And those are the kind of things I feel like a lot of people are missing in sport and in life, especially with everything that's going on right now, because it's very easy to lay down with everything that's going on. You know what I mean?
Yeah, because we're I hate to say it, but we're kind of bred that way as children.
Yeah.
Right? Like everybody gets a medal. It's okay. Things will be better. Like there's no hard times. Like we don't treat these kids and make them kind of evolve and push through the hard times, which is why the things that I really try to emphasize to my wife and to my children that, hey, if you don't know what you're doing, don't just come and call me right away. Try to figure it out. I know you're 3 years old, but you're smart enough to figure it out.
And like what I've taught my daughter since she was 1 was like she would fall down and hurt her knee. Like, and I watch other parents, and I don't care what other parents do. Those are their kids, and that's none of my business. But I'll see other parents, and like their kid falls down, and they're crying, right? But they're not hurt. They're not hurt. Let's be honest. They're not hurt. It's just an emotional reaction. So how I approached it, and people might call it, not very friendly, but I tell my daughter, I'll pick her up and I say, shake it off. And I walk away. And my daughter does this now. She'll physically shake it off and she'll stop crying, right? And with everything that's going on, hard times make hard people, right? And I think that we were in a lot of soft times. Let's be honest. We're in a lot of soft times and people got a little comfortable. Now we're in hard times and it's a gut check time, especially in the fitness industry, and that's what I wanted to ask you is your thoughts on everything that's going on in terms of, like, I don't want to get into the politics of shit because forget politics, but like when we talk about sport and fitness and just gyms in general, there's been this like ridiculous attack on the industry from government entities. And what are your thoughts on like how do we overcome that and move forward from it?
I'm fortunate enough that I haven't had to really deal with that from like a local standpoint, from the local gyms and stuff. I'm in here in my own little private studio, so I do what I want, how I want, when I want to do it.
Yeah.
I still go by the bylaws. I always believe that, if the government says that we need to wear the masks and we got to get vaccinated, do I want to go above and beyond and try to not do what they say? I don't know. It's if that's what it is, that's what's going to keep the population safe. Yeah. And this vaccine's been the most looked at ever in history. And I got double vaccinated. I did what I was needed to do just to keep the others around me safe and to make sure that these hospitals aren't getting overpopulated with people that are sick. But I don't know. I've been lucky enough that I don't really have to deal too much with all that. So that one's tough on me because I haven't had to get into that real world issue.
Yeah, but like like what I'm trying to get at is like the narrative.
Sorry,
no worries.
I can't hear you for some reason now.
Can you hear me now? Is better? Yeah, can you hear me now?
Oh, yeah, no, I can hear you now. For some reason, sometimes this speaker thing like this pops up.
Yeah,
like it just turned it off for some reason. I just turned off your audio.
All right, well, we're back. Anyway, okay. What I was saying is, what I was trying to get at is like how like fitness industry and like gyms and sport has been kind of viewed it as this threat. You know what I mean? If you do it, if we engage in it, it's going to be a threat to. Well, like the virus is real. Have had COVID. I know it's real, but like, do you feel like there's been a unwarranted like attack on the industry? That's what I was trying to get at.
Yeah, like I think that they may think that well, we know that gyms are, I wouldn't say they're not sanitary, and they're probably cleaner than they were before.
100%.
Just because of COVID. But you go to a gym, it's just lurking with so many different bacteria and viruses. Just the nature of it. There's millions of people going in there throughout the week.
Yeah.
But so that's one of the places where they deem the most unsafe, just because so many people can go to one place and there's a cluster of hundreds of people, especially you go to the big gyms like YMCA, LA Fitness, right? So they're just deeming those places. So those are the first places they're going to shut down. because it's just hard to clean all that equipment unless like they're just going every day. So this very unsanitary, but they're probably way cleaner, 10 times cleaner than
10
they
times
ever
cleaner
have.
than before. Everybody I know who's a gym owner, I know a lot of gym owners, have spent thousands of dollars making their place friggin' cleaner than before. And I think when I was doing the podcast with Corey, he said this is like the new age of gym is like if you have a dirty, like rotten looking facility, like you need to consider like putting some money into renovation and getting rid of that because that is like no longer will you be able to get away with that. You know, like the old time you'd be like, oh, this is a the old weightlifting gym. It's like
old dungy gyms.
Yeah, you won't be able to get away with that anymore just because of the kind of like the shift that we've had. But we all know that when you go to the gym, you breathe, you sweat. It's just the nature of it. But there's been this kind of like narrative push that it's like the bad place to be, and I've been.
Does Doug Ford look like he's going over to the gym? I guess the guys that are calling the shots are the last guys that are in the gyms anyway, right? So,
well, yeah, and it's all about your health. It's all about our health. It's all about our health. But the people calling the shots, they have never fucking spent a day in their life putting themselves through this grind, right? And obviously, there's no denying we're both on the same page. There's a virus out there, but the best way to combat it is by living a fucking healthy lifestyle.
Yes, right? Living a healthy lifestyle.
We can do all those different measures and 6 feet apart and wear the mask. But let's be honest, guys. Eat right, sleep, take your vitamins, exercise, and you'll be fucking fine. But those are the things that aren't being pushed. It's almost like the conversation that I just told you, what I just said you is a bad thing. You know what I mean? It goes against the grain.
Yeah, and that's the biggest thing people need is they need an outlet. They need somewhere where they can let go of some of that built up anger, I guess, from these people. But a lot of these people that that used to go to gyms, you broke their routine, so now they're at home and they're locked up all day, and now they're eating like shit. They're not getting out and exercising, and so now you're really making the population 10 times more sick than before.
Yeah, and well, that just puts a lot of pressure on the fitness industry because like a lot of places won't survive. Like a lot of the local gyms, even Good Life's in trouble. Even Good Life, they have to take out a big loan to keep themselves up. They're in trouble too, and it's not over yet. You know what I mean? Like this situation is not over yet, where we will lose. I've already seen a lot of people who are in fitness transition out because they have to pay the bills, right? Let's just call it like it is. They got to pay the bills, and with constant shutdowns and the fitness industry being sort of victimized, what are you going to do? You got to leave the industry, right? At least momentarily. So do you see that there's going to be like, I personally think fitness isn't going anywhere. There's going to be a high demand for it, especially in the next couple of years. But do you see like there being a lack of fitness professionals with everything that's going on?
No, because like you said, there's gonna be that boom again, either on the online circuit, but people are gonna get that itch to go back into a community, into a culture, and want to be a part of something again. So that's probably gonna boom up in the next couple of years as the virus starts to calm itself down and people start to live a more normal life. Especially now, like in the summer, it starts to push. It's getting into these winter months that it kind of sucks because we live in a place where 6 months out of the year it's cold and we can't get outside and enjoy the beautiful sunshine. So if there is closure, it really kind of sucks the wind out of a lot of people because in the summertime you can go outside and right. So there was a big boom this summer of people getting back to a lot of clubs and stuff like that and just getting outside. But like you said, like if you're going to do half capacity in these gyms, and the overhead is so expensive, especially now. The cost of living has gone up, and so the overhead. You just get a 3,000-4,000 square foot place. You're going over 8, 9, 10 grand a month to pay for this stuff. So if you can't really get the capacity, you're gonna either be just breaking even, and you can't make a living, and you put in all that time and effort into almost nothing.
Or you're gonna be taking out loans and just trying
taking out loans, right?
Stay above,
trying to stay afloat. So
now, for all that aside, one of my biggest things that I wanted to talk to you about, because you're involved in with so many athletes, is the future of sport in Ontario. It's taken a big hit, and especially now that this first month of high school, they're not allowed to do extracurriculars. Kids have not been able to compete and do the things that they've trained to do and they love to do for almost 2 years now. How do we, like me and you as fitness pros, help out with this? What does the future look like? Because it looks pretty grim right now for those kids that are, say they're in grade 12, 11, looking to perform at the next level, looking to get scholarships, but they can't compete. What can we do as coaches, and what can we do as a fitness community to kind of help them along?
It's very, very challenging for these grade 11s and 12s because they can't obviously compete, so they don't get the film in order to get out to those college coaches. So like you said, it takes a big community, and it takes a lot of coaches like us to put on a lot of these extracurricular activities
Yeah.
in order for them to get that little extra stimulus that they're missing from the game to keep them in tip-top shape. And obviously, as professionals, health professionals, we're in a boat where we always have to make money. So if you're fortunate enough and you can get out there and you can give a lot of these kids that maybe are less fortunate some opportunities to jump in. Like, we do a lot of extracurricular activities with our organization, Peers of Performance, where we work with a lot of athletes that may not be able to afford programs.
Yeah.
And so a lot of our online stuff we give away for free to athletes that can't afford it. And we do it. I run a lot of camps in the summertime. We always have 2-3 kids that jump in that can't afford, that come in for free, that come and play. And, it's just so there's things like that. And then right now they just don't have a lot of the budgets for for a lot of sports in high schools anymore. Yeah. Or if they do, they had to cut it significantly for other things. But it's just going to be like that for a little while. So a lot of these kids, they just have to find different outlets, and they gotta go into different activities to keep them rolling. They got to do a lot of extracurriculars.
How do we, like, so some of these kids are going to miss 2, possibly 3 years of collegiate sport, right? Do you think that, because I feel like we won't see it right now, but maybe in 2 or 3 years, we will see maybe a potential decline in the level of athletes to come out of Canada because of that? Do you feel like there's a way that we can help rectify that with the missing of the game time and the play experience that they've?
The only way that you can mimic the game is by playing it.
Yes.
So no matter what, there's gonna be a hit. The only way that those athletes can continue to play at a very high level is to just practice a ton, practice the sport as much as they can, and they got to go out and they got to go play in the rep leagues, because there are rep leagues still. There's soccer, basketball, football, right? So you got to go so if you're not doing it in high school, you got to go in the community and get into a sport out there. And if there's not as many, and then you just got to find the tournaments, you got to travel and you got to make yourself available. You got to scour it. If this is what you want to do, then you got to make yourself available and go out to the States or anywhere around the world and kind of get in there.
Yeah, because for any young athletes that are listening, there's a lot of guys that were in their 20s and teens that I know that are competing in MMA that they literally packed their shit up and went to the States for like 8 months and were training down there, and they were able to compete. And obviously you can't stay there for the whole fucking time. You got to come back, immigration rules and stuff. But those are some of the sacrifices people might have to make. But it's unfortunate that they're in this position, and it's hard as there's so much stuff I want to do to help them. But the biggest thing I would say is, from an athlete like myself who has had injuries and have had to sit out, not for the same reasons that they have to sit out, is one of the things you can do that is very underrated is mental reps. Like watching your sport, taking those mental reps and almost like doing it in your head over and over and over, to the point where when it actually happens in front of you, when you get back into the game, when things do open up and you're able to, it almost seems like you've done it a million times, even though you haven't. Right. And I mean, we do this in normal training, whatever, those mental reps, but this is a time where, you're not able to compete. So I think it's probably the most important thing you can do right now.
A lot of mental reps and just watching a lot of video, studying the game, right?
Yeah.
Becoming a student of the game, watching yourself from previous years, watching the people that you like and want to mimic and want to, have the same skill set as. It's all those little things, right? And it's just a lot of kids don't know that. They need a lot of guidance on that, and it's because it's very boring.
Yeah.
It's very boring. So
yeah, like one of the things, whenever I have a surgery or an injury from MMA, I end up diving deep into watching old fights, like very old, like Pride and old competitions, because it's very easy to look at the new game, the new NFL, the new NBA, and see all the crazy athletes. But if you go back in time and watch some of the greats do some of the stuff they do, it's no different than what's happening now. It's just on another level. But there's also some technical things that they were doing back then that gets lost in the evolution of sport, that if you pay attention, it could give you a significant advantage in your sport coming back. You know what I mean? Like when I look at the NFL, one of the things for me that's missing in the NFL and CFL are, back in the day, guys had very good tackling technique. They squared their shoulders and they ran through people, whereas nowadays it's not as clean. You get the odd once in a while big hits, you know what I mean? But when we're talking about some of the all-time greats, they were better and cleaner at tackling. So, like, for example, if you're a football athlete now who hasn't been able to play 2 years, study those guys. Look at their technique and mimic it. Do it in your basement if you have to. You know what I mean? Those are the things you can do. But, I mean, it's so difficult when they can't play. They got to get back to playing.
Yeah, well, all these kids nowadays are just looking for the big shot, right? They look for the highlight knockout. So they're not going to be as clean and as efficient as the guys in the old days where the social media wasn't a thing. They didn't, TSN highlights weren't the thing. They were just going out and they just need to make that solid tackle, right? So they weren't so they weren't getting that showboating.
How do we get sport back? What do we have to do?
Man, that's a tough one. I guess we just gotta wait. we gotta wait on the government. That's just what it is. Like, all we can do is just kind of I don't know, man. That's a tough question. I think everybody's kind of wondering that and trying to figure it all out. I think it's just kind of doing the thing, and hopefully everybody starts to get vaccinated and things just kind of turn around. It's just a waiting game.
Yeah. So I mean, at this point, it is what it is. I mean, there's not much that we could do, but at the same time, I think whoever's left in the fitness industry has got to step up a little bit. And and I'm not trying to put anybody on the spot or anything like that, but I think that if we do want sport and the fitness industry to thrive, like, I know fitness industry will thrive, but I'm a little more worried about sport in general, sport and competition. The loss of those years for a lot of people will lead to non-participation in the future. Like when you take time off and you have a hard time getting back into it, right? I'm afraid that some of that time off will, like we were talking about, give into that mindset of laziness.
Yeah.
And
and the thing is, like, this is my thing. Like, if I love football, no matter if there's a pandemic or I'm not playing football or not, that's what I want to do. That I'm going to figure out a way
to do it.
I'm gonna figure out a way to do it and get better and continue my grind. So when it does come back up, right? And those kids that come out of it, those are the kids that are meant to continue and to push. Those are the kids that just never gave up, and like you said, just make them harder, made them stronger, made them more resilient. Their grind was real. They came out and they were better than when they left. And those are the kids that are going to rise to the top. And I think sport will be all right because you're always going to have, and it might even come back stronger because those are the kids that are coming back. So you're going to get the best of the best.
Yeah.
Best of the best coming back.
And that could be I don't doubt that. I just you're gonna have the best of the best. I'm more worried about the ones that maybe weren't gonna be professional athletes, and that was their only chance. That was their only time to play. You know what I mean? They've lost
No,
that experience.
absolutely. Well, hopefully that they got into what they wanted to get into a little bit faster.
Yeah,
Hopefully they figured it out and they didn't have to waste any more time. Just kind of riding the bench or whatever. And they kind of figured out what they were going to do quicker, and they got into their profession faster. So actually, they're doing better than they were.
absolutely. So anyway, let's wrap this shit up. We've been fucking talking for forever, but
Yeah.
man, it was great catching up with you and talking to you about all this stuff. Can you let everybody know where to find you, how they can get in touch with you if they want to train, if they want to see any of your programs? How do they get it?
Yeah, so the best way to find me is on Instagram at Pierre's Elite Performance. That's the hash or a Pet Fast hashtag on there. A lot of our stuff comes up. Or you can go to pierreseliteperformance.com. That's where you find a lot of our products and programs on there. Yeah, man, it was great to catch up with you, just chatting it up, and man, I enjoyed it.
Yeah, man, we'll do it again anytime, man. That was fun as I love doing this shit and talking to people because, well, one, there's no filters. You can say whatever the hell you want. But two, it's always a learning experience. Like I always learn something talking, right? And that's one of the, if I finish this shit off anyway, I just like talk to people. People are friendly, guys. Everybody
Yeah,
talk to each other. and,
absolutely. Yeah.
and anyway, thank you everybody for joining us today. That was another episode of Grind My Gears. Join me next time. Shay, thank you, brother. It was a
All right,
pleasure.
man.
And that's it for
Yes.
me. Buddy, thank you for watching. Please do me a favor. Click the like below. Share on YouTube. Share on Instagram. Share on Facebook. Spread the word so I can keep creating more content for you and keep providing you with a great podcast experience. Peace out.